Hello and welcome to Miniature Adventures. This week I want to ask, where have all the hills gone? So during our recent recording of the Yarkshire Wargamers big Wargaming podcast, Ken Reilly raised a question that stuck with me. Where have all the hills gone, he said. And he was reflecting on what he'd seen at Salute 52, one of the premier Wargaming events in our calendar. While the spectacle of beautifully painted miniatures and stunning table setups was undeniable, Ken felt he'd noticed something odd: the apparent absence of hills on the gaming tables, particularly historical tables. And what had traditionally been a staple of wargaming terrain seemed to have vanished. So it got me thinking, not just about whether Ken's observation was actually accurate, but about why hills have been important in wargames for so long, and whether their apparent disappearance represents a meaningful shift or just a temporary aberration. So historically, elevation has played a crucial role in real-world battles. From the heights of Gettysburg to the ridge at Waterloo, controlling the high ground has often been the difference between victory and defeat. In ancient warfare, hilltops offered both visibility and defensive strength. In modern battles, elevation could be a platform for artillery, observation posts, or defensive bastions. Wargaming at its best seeks to replicate these essential military considerations on the tabletop. So when hills are absent, it does not just affect the visual aesthetics of a game, it alters the tactical depth as well. Elevation changes how players approach movement, fire arcs, objectives. A battlefield devoid of hills becomes quite literally a flatter experience, both visually and strategically. So returning to Salute 52, the absence of hills was certainly notable across countless tables showcasing everything from medieval clashes to science fiction skirmishes. Flatness appeared to reign supreme. Yes, there were beautifully sculpted rivers, urban ruins, meticulously detailed forests, but true elevation, areas where the landscape rose and fell to create natural obstacles or vantage points, were rare. Not completely absent, but rare. Was this merely a coincidence, a quirk of the particular tables that caught our attention, or was it indicative of a broader trend in how demo games are designed for large conventions? In truth, Salute is not the only place where the flat battlefield phenomenon has been noticed. Similar patterns have emerged in other conventions over the past few years. Games at large shows often favour eye-catching, highly detailed layouts that sometimes prioritise aesthetic uniformity over physical realism. A printed neoprene mat with highly detailed glass textures may look stunning, but it remains essentially flat. The ease of setup, the durability of flat mats and the visual impact they offer may be seducing organisers and clubs into leaving elevation behind. Club games, on the other hand, can sometimes tell a different story. In private settings where the pressures of putting on a good show are reduced, you might still see lovely sculptured hills, multi-level landscapes, and a willingness to embrace the practical challenges of varied terrain. Beyond the question of appearances, the role of hills in wargame mechanics cannot be overstated. Elevation traditionally brings several important gameplay elements into the mix. High ground offers line of sight advantages, allowing troops to fire further or spot enemies sooner. It can provide defensive bonuses, making it harder for attackers to dislodge entrenched units. In movement terms, hills often introduce penalties or extra effort, affecting the pace and strategy of an advance. In games that emphasise realism, these mechanics are essential to replicating real-world tactical dilemmas. Interestingly, the importance of hills can vary significantly depending on the scale of the miniatures and the game system being used. In smaller scales like 6mm or 10mm, where entire battalions are represented by a handful of figures, even slight variations in terrain need to be exaggerated visually to have a gameplay impact. In 15mm or 28mm, the scale of hills can be more naturalistic, but it still requires careful planning to ensure that they are playable as well as attractive. At all scales, hills serve not just as visual backdrops, but as active, meaningful parts of the battlefield ecosystem. Of course, creating and integrating hills into a gaming table is not without its challenges. Modern trends towards the flat battle mats have in many ways encouraged the abandonment of traditional three-dimensional terrain. A mouse pad style mat with a printed hill might look attractive from a distance and allow figures to sit flush without toppling over, but it fails to capture the physical reality of elevation. The more ambitious attempt at layering 3D hills into such mats introduces new problems. Models slip off slopes, movement trays might wobble, and the visual transition from flat mat to a raised hill can sometimes look quite jarring. And practicality is often cited as a reason to avoid hills, or for avoiding the use of hills, especially in large demo games. Flat tables are easier to transport, set up, pack away. There's less risk of damage to miniatures, and there is a reduced need for house rules about what counts as being on the hill versus not. But these conveniences come at a cost. Without elevation, battlefields lose a dimension of strategic complexity. Players are denied the tactical opportunities that hills provide, and the visual storytelling that terrain elevation offers is weakened. Another factor at play is the evolving aesthetic of wargaming. As materials and printing technologies have improved, it's become tempting to focus on surface detail at the expense of topographical variety. Gorgeous printed mats with roads, fields and rivers baked into the design create a canvas that is almost too beautiful to disrupt with raised features. But there is a subtle irony here. While the mats look more realistic in one sense, they become less representative of the rugged terrain that battlefields are really made up of and soldiers would have really fought across. Historical battles underscore just how significant hills can be. At Gettysburg, the fight for Little Round Top was pivotal. At Waterloo, Wellington's defence hinged on holding the reverse slope of a ridge. At countless other engagements across history, elevation has shaped the course of combat in decisive ways. Older wargaming rule sets like those from the 70s and the 80s often placed great emphasis on the importance of hills. Movement rates were adjusted for climbing slopes. Visibility was carefully measured based on line of sight to elevated positions, and artillery effectiveness changed depending on whether guns fired uphill or downhill. Many modern rule sets still account for these factors, but when the physical hills are missing from the table, the opportunities to use these rules meaningfully diminish. If we recognise the value that hills bring to both the realism and enjoyment of wargaming, the question then becomes, how do we bring them back? The good news is that there are many creative solutions available. Building realistic, playable hills is not as difficult as it might seem. I've made loads in my time. Modular hills made from foam board, cork or sculpted polystyrene can be shaped and printed and then painted to match mats or boards. Gentle slopes allow figures to stand securely without looking unnatural. Hills can be built into cloth or felt overlays, creating subtle undulations that preserve model stability while introducing tactical variety. Another approach is to design tables where hills are integrated into the structure of the board itself rather than placed on top. Tables with built-in elevations, gentle rises and naturalistic contours offer a seamless and visually appealing solution. They look more real. Even small variations in height can dramatically enhance both the look and the tactical flavour of a game. Looking around the hobby today, there are still plenty of good examples to draw inspiration from. Some of the best demo games at recent shows have embraced elevation creatively and integrating cliffs, ridges and rolling hills into their layouts. In skirmish games, verticality is often emphasised through multi-level ruins or rocky outcrops, and there's no reason why larger battle games cannot do the same with naturalistic hills. Ultimately, whether the lack of hills apparent at Salute 52 is a minor fashion or a deeper trend is hard to say with certainty. Trends in the hobby come and go. A few years ago, every other table seemed to feature dense urban terrain. Before that, it was desert tables with minimal features were all the rage. It may simply be that the current preference for ultra-realistic flat mats will pass and the value of physical elevation will reassert itself. As hobbyists, club organisers and event planners, we have the opportunity to set the tone. By incorporating hills thoughtfully into our tables, whether at home or at game nights or on the big stage at conventions, we can preserve and celebrate an essential part of wargaming's heritage. More importantly, we can make our games better, more immersive, more challenging and ultimately more rewarding. So next time you're setting up a battlefield, whether it's a grand Napoleonic clash, a desperate World War II engagement or a fantastical skirmish in an imagined world, ask yourself, where have all the hills gone? And then maybe, just maybe, put a few of them back. So as usual, I want to ask for your impressions on this topic. Did you attend Salute and come away with the same flat feeling that Ken did? Or do you think he missed lots of great tables with hills? Is the flat gaming surface a trend or an illusion? As always, I would love to know what you think on this topic in the comments below. So time for a channel update. Now, a couple of weeks ago I wrote a short community post explaining to the viewers, particularly subscribers, may notice more shorts appearing on the channel. As I said in the post, I'm not planning on replacing my usual long videos, but as I'll explain in a moment, I have what I think are 3 really good reasons for wanting to add shorts to my channel content. So, I've been trawling through lots of little snippets of video that never got used elsewhere and stitching them together into little videos of less than 60 seconds. So why am I doing this? Well, one of the drivers behind this is the all-powerful YouTube algorithm, which favours sites that have a mix of shorts and long-form videos on them. So a few short videos linked to some of my longer content may help boost the overall performance of the channel. It may not, but it may do. The second reason is simply to broaden the reach of the channel by appealing to a different audience. In particular, I'd like to see a wider age range of viewers exploring the channel and becoming active subscribers. Shorts have a younger demographic, and if I can tempt just a few of them to watch my longer videos and maybe, just maybe, tempt them to try historical wargaming, then I would count that as a job well done. And the third reason is it gives me something to do when I'm not on my computer. All my long form videos are edited on my laptop, but shorts are composed using a phone app. So while I'm otherwise idle, away from my operations room and my desk, I can still get something productive done to support the channel. So, over the last couple of weeks I have been experimenting with different types of content. Some shorts have revisited old games or old shows, some showcase miniatures I've painted, and some are ultra short bat reps. But now that I have a variety of content out there, it's time to ask for some feedback on what you would like to see going forwards. So I've put a poll on the on the channel's community tab, and this is your chance to shape the channel going forwards. So please vote and leave your feedback in the comments as always, and let me know what types of shorts that I've produced so far you really liked and what you'd like to see me producing going forwards. So a very quick Workbench update. I've finished converting a few figures to make an unusual unit for the retreat from Moscow. Russian Cossack units apparently employed an innovative solution to winter warfare: sled-mounted light artillery. Now, these sled guns helped maintain Russian mobility and firepower across frozen battlefields. Standard artillery carriages often failed in deep snow and extreme cold, and from what I can find, these small calibre guns, say 2 or 3 pounders, were mounted onto wooden sleds. Now these were fitted with runners, of course, instead of wheels, enabling the guns to move swiftly across snow and ice. And the example that I found was showing Cossacks using them, pushing them up to keep up with the advance, to keep putting pressure on the French as they retired. Now, it doesn't appear to be any standardisation. The sled designs varied from simple flatbeds to reinforced frames capable of absorbing recoil. Often sled guns were hauled by small horse teams and fired directly from the sled, sometimes anchored to add stability and avoid recoil. Cossack sled guns fit seamlessly into their hit-and-roll style warfare. Small detachments use these guns to ambush French supply columns, harass stragglers, raid lightly defended posts. Their lightweight made them ideal for fast attack and rapid withdrawals. During the 1812 retreat from Moscow, sled guns would have contributed to the consistent and constant harassment of the Grand Army. Although not powerful enough to shatter major formations, the psychological impact of mobile artillery attacks in the depths of winter was significant. French morale, already collapsing under starvation and exposure, deteriorated further under the constant threat of sudden artillery fire. Now, the gun in this model was scratch built using 2 small Prussian artillery pieces in their carriages to make 1 sled gun. The sled itself is made from parts of the gun carriages and is a rough approximation of the custom build sleds described and illustrated in the pictures above. For crew, I used Cossacks from Wargames Foundry's 7 Years War range, replacing a rifle with a sponge rammer and a sword with a slow match. And I did a short showing off this model on Friday, so go and check that out. So as always, please join the conversation in the comments below, and if you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe and share. And if you want to keep up to date with weekly content from the channel, please tap the bell notification icon. So until next week, stay safe, keep gaming, and of course, keep rolling high.